You're watching Fairfield Public Access Television. I'm Susan Kessel, and my co-host Connie Boyer and I are here today to have our show Opening Fairfield Doors. And our mission statement is, by opening the doors into the lives of the people and places in our community, we hope to make people aware and appreciate each other. That's boiled down a little bit. And our guest today is Roy Eubanks. This is your Life, Roy Eubanks show.
Okay. All right.
And Connie, you asked Roy to be here, so I'll let you start.
Okay. Well, I've known Roy for a really, really long time. His daughter and I went to school together, for one thing, and we used to play together in grade school.
Right.
And I believe you played softball with my father.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's many good stories to tell there.
Yes.
But I don't know if we want to embarrass our families, do we?
Well, you think about when you and Rhonda played and what you did after the game.
Now you have how many children?
2. I got Rhonda, she's in Denver, coming home tomorrow with her children, and my son just moved to Tennessee.
Oh.
So it's, you know, you hate to see your children leave, but we left home and moved quite a ways from where our parents were, and it's just something that happened, you know. You don't like to see your children move away, and you'd rather see them daily or once a week or something like that. They always say that Grandma cries when the grandchildren leave, Grandpa cries when he hears they're coming.
So you didn't grow up in Fairfield, is that what you're saying?
No, I was born and raised in Wapello, which is over here in eastern part of Iowa. My dad was killed when I was 3.
Oh.
My mother stayed single for quite a while, and the thing that I can really think about is we remember way back when. My mother used to wash and iron clothes for a pretty well-to-do family, and she got $1 a bushel basket after she washed them and ironed them and folded them and put them in there.
Wow.
Yeah, $1 a basket. And then we would be allowed to go to the movies in a little town, and the movies cost 10 cents, and we usually took our own popcorn. And where we went to the movie at, it was in an attic of an old building, much like the one we're in now, and there was exposed rafters up there, and when the movie was going on, you could hear these pigeons up there. They were sitting overhead, and you almost had to take an umbrella in there with you. But I remember things like that so well. You know, now we go to the movie, it's an air-conditioned movie, and we take popcorn and everything, and $7 or $8 to get into a movie or whatever. And then some of the things that we see in the movies and on television are a little bit I guess different than they were many, many years ago. A lot of that stuff, and I'm not saying I'm that straight or anything, but boy, some of that stuff you see on television now in the movies, you just wonder, gee, what's next? It's pretty bad, it really is.
Yeah.
But anyway, my mother remarried, and we moved to another part of Iowa. I went to school up there, and finally got out of school. And 3 days after I got out of school, I was in the United States Navy. And I got out of the Navy, and I come home, and I applied for the State Highway Patrol, and the first year I didn't make it. And I thought, well...
What did you do in the Navy first?
Oh, my Navy. Well, I was
Besides being on a ship, I assume you're on a ship.
I was in everything in the East. I was in France, Germany, Turkey, Spain, everything in the Mediterranean. And I never will forget the first night that I was away from home. You know, when you're little, your mother makes your bed, she's got your breakfast ready for you. Then you go in there with hundreds of other sailors, and you're homesick, and you want to cry, but you don't want to have everybody think that you're a pansy, so you tough it out. And we went to radio school, and I was on the USS Forrestal, which is a big carrier, and I spent most of my time, I was a little time on a sub, and I spent most of my time on it's an AD-24, it's USS Everglades. It was stationed out of Charleston, South Carolina right now. And what it was is a big ship. I mean, it was big.
Not like an aircraft carrier type thing.
But, you know, a little submarine, and then we got a destroyer, and then we got, this thing was 660 feet long and had several hundred guys on it. Our job was, we was radio, and we were the people that was up on top, and we would be responsible for everything that come in, telling what the fleet was doing, where we were supposed to go, and what we were supposed to be doing. The only thing that we was in, the time that we was in, was never in any conflict. I just happened to be the one that went, but when it was my time to go, the Korean War was over, and the Vietnam War hadn't started yet. And I've often thought back, I would have gone to the service. I have very little respect for draft dodgers and people that they want all their rights, but they have never did one thing to preserve them or protect them or earn them. And I really have a problem with that. And normally the people that do the most squawking are the ones that really did the least to earn everything that they expect from America. But had it been Vietnam, I would have gone. I think, and I guess I can say this, I would rather be a dead Vietnam veteran than a draft dodger. And that's kind of a rash statement, but that's just the way I look at it. I have very little respect for people that want everything but do nothing to earn any of it. But anyway, after I got out of the service when I was 21 and headed for home and back to Iowa. Not much going on here as there is now. But I'll ask you two the question. If you was to pick another place other than Fairfield to live, where would it be?
Somewhere warm in the winter. Caribbean.
I'd stay right in Fairfield. I like Fairfield.
It is. It's a wonderful place.
We have different cultures here. We've got people that think differently, but you tell me where we don't. You tell me where there's a perfect place. That not everybody likes the same thing. And the next topic that we'll be talking about is trapping, and that's going to be pretty controversial. But I don't know of anything in this world that we all agree on.
Right,
yeah.
Right. We just need to understand each other, and that's what our show is about, is opening doors to help understanding.
I think the problem that a lot of people have, there's things in this world that I agree with, things that I don't agree with. But I don't like to stick my face in somebody else and tell them, you're going to have to do it the way that I want it. If I want to trap, let me do it. And if you don't want me to trap, you don't have to do it. But don't tell me what I can and can't do. As long as it's legal and I've got permission to be there, I don't think other people should be really dictating or trying to change my lifestyle. There's a lot of things that goes on in Fairfield that you disagree with, and you disagree with, not animally, but a little bit.
Oh, sure, there always is.
Yeah, live and let live. Don't be trying to tell everybody else what to do.
Going back to your career as a patrolman first, does the law and what you're saying comes back down to that, I think, your career in the highway patrol.
You mean as far as telling people what to do?
Well, just interpreting laws.
Well, I think I remember I was on the highway patrol for 32 years. And when we first got out of patrol school, we went to Burlington. And that's way back in the Buck Cole days and the Pete Hall and the Gene Sims and some of the older people that a lot of the older people can remember. But it was totally different then.
Those are people in the highway patrol or what?
Well, yeah, that was the old highway
names.
patrolman. Kind of looked like me, after 32 years, pot belly and no hair, and that's kind of the way it goes. But
so how old were you when you started with the highway?
24.
24.
Yeah.
And you said you didn't pass or something.
Yes.
Was there a test you had to do or a
right now,
physical type thing? Or
well, right now with my education, I couldn't even get on the highway patrol. I'd be wasting my time trying, because back in the 50s, you got out of high school and you either got married or you went to the service. But now, there's so many different other things. A lot of people, as soon as they get out of school, they go on to college, which is almost a must. You can see what's going on for those that drop out of high school. They're going nowhere in life. And some of the people that go to college and just kind of slide through, they're not going very far. They say there's 3 ways to get rich. What is it? Marry it?
Work hard.
Inherit it? No, that's not one.
No, that's not one. Okay.
Marry it, inherit it, or stick them up. That's the 3 ways to get rich. But
well.
and I've never had a good paying job. I've had a good job, but none of these. And I was watching television the other day, and these politicians, they're something to behold. But they said a single mother with 2 children making $75,000 a year. Where are they coming up with these numbers? $75,000 a year for one income family? That's a little higher than what we're accustomed to.
It must not be in Fairfield.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's at the Iowa State Bank.
Oh, yeah, right. I don't think so.
You don't think so? But anyway, we got out of the Navy, and I said I like wearing a uniform, always have. And, little girls grow up wanting to be nurses, and little boys grow up wanting to be firemen or policemen or something like that. So anyway, we put in for it. Right now, I think if you was to apply for the patrol, like I said a little bit ago, I couldn't get on because I don't have the education for it.
Do you have to have a 4-year college degree?
It's not a must. It's not a must, but if you don't apply. Because what we're trying to do now is draw, like the Marine Corps, the best from the best. The people that we want on the patrol right now are pretty hard to come by. Everybody looks at that uniform, oh, uniform and a badge, and boy, red lights and sirens and all that stuff. And they'll come to work and we educate them. And when I left the patrol, it cost about $50,000, and that was in 1993. $50,000 of Iowa tax dollars to put one person through the patrol academy. And what they would do is they'd come on and they'd stay for about a year or so. And then the kind of a conflict would develop between the wife and the husband, because he's gone all the time. That woman has to raise the children, because that patrolman, he works nights, he works weekends, he works holidays, he works the midnight shift. And when most people are off going to the beach or wherever else, he's working. So that leaves mother with the kids, and what's she going to do by herself?
Now,
Well,
do they just have like a rotating schedule? Do they work more than 40 hours a week normally?
they work 9.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So
Okay.
you're talking 50 hours. Right now, with the fuel crunch they got on now, they're having state troopers sitting alongside the road with their motors off to conserve fuel. I can remember back when we had another fuel crisis that we could only drive 100 miles a day in a 10-hour work shift.
Oh, really?
So you're averaging 10 miles an hour.
Well, I have a question. A few months ago, we were in Illinois, and I thought this was interesting because they had, it looked like they had, must have been traps or something along.
What?
Traps?
Not
Say
traps.
That?
They're called
What's it called? What's the official word? That's what the layman calls
enforcement,
it.
not traps.
Not like these kind of traps. Okay, excuse me.
You are like a lot of people.
Enforcement.
You like law enforcement as long as it doesn't apply to you.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
No, but okay, so there.
But we always have the good
anyway,
excuse.
There were a lot of policemen in a very small area, and when we passed by this particular place the first time, there was a Mustang, unmarked
Right.
Mustang. When we came back, there was also another unmarked Mustang that patrolmen were in. And I thought, gosh, that's a nice car to drive. What fun. But beyond that, as a woman, I said to my husband, I said, you know, particularly if it was at night, but
Yeah.
I don't even know if daytime, if I saw this red light on top, I would stop. If it was at night, I would not stop.
In the 60s, would you
And-
have stopped without much reservation?
Oh, no. Yeah, you would have
Well,
stopped.
I think
But
years
now-
ago, you
But
just felt
right,
more
things have
comfortable than you do out
changed.
there now.
So, I mean, how does the, how do these people, you know, how do the law enforcement people feel about that? You know, I mean, I would be afraid to stop because there have been incidences
Oh,
where
We had a
it
directive the
was
other
not
night.
a real patrolman.
Well,
you
no,
know.
anybody can get a car and buy one of those little red lights and plug it in a cigarette lighter and go out there and do whatever he wants to do. But when we were still working, and that was a $64 question, what do you tell people, especially females, that are driving anytime, day or night, but more especially at night, on a remotely traveled road by yourself, and here you look in the rearview mirror, and I think, let's say that you're driving 80 miles an hour and you knew you're violating the law and you get pulled over. That would be one thing that you might say, well, it's probably a patrolman, I was out of line. But let's say you're doing nothing wrong, and all of a sudden you see these red lights behind you, what would you do? And the law says what? When you see red lights approaching from either direction, what's the law require you to do?
Pull
Pull
over.
over.
And STOP, stop.
Stop.
Okay. If you don't, you can get a ticket for failure to yield to emergency vehicle, right? Okay, so let's say that you do take the first one, you do pull over and stop, and it's not the highway patrolman, it's not a city, it's not an officer, and you put yourself in a very dire situation out there, because first of all, you're scared to death. You've probably got your window rolled down, and if that person wants to come up and do whatever he wants to do, you're at his mercy. There's no
Yeah.
way.
So
walks
should you
up-
keep the window rolled up until they show
What most of us has told them.
significant identification?
All right, let's say that you're north of Birmingham, for example, and this takes place. A car comes up behind you. You know the way radar works? Radar works both ways, but normally when a highway patrolman or an officer is coming one way and you're coming the other, that's when the radar is usually activated. They have radars now that'll shoot out the back, but normally if you see if you're meeting something and you go by it and you see that car turn and the red lights right away come on, that's about a 99% authentic stop. If this person just comes up behind you like helter-skelter and gets right behind you and then turn the lights on, that would give me a different feeling. This just doesn't appear to be right. But then the next part of the question is, let's say that it was you and you did stop and you got in deep water, which you're not going to get out of, or let's say that you continue to drive north of Birmingham up to Fairfield, 6-7 miles, and you
go
don't
to a lighted place.
You don't run
you feel
fast, you
safe.
run 55 or 50 mile an hour, and you just kind of let that guy know that you're not really comfortable with this situation and come into Fairfield. I would say that 99% of the officers would understand the situation because they can see their daughter or their wife out there in the same situation. So let's say you get an officer that's really kind of pushing the issue. Would you rather have a ticket for failure to yield to an emergency vehicle or something that you'll remember a lot worse for the rest of your life? I'd continue on.
Okay, well, I'd rather get a ticket, but boy, I'd sure be mad.
I was going to say that.
I get a kick out of some people. They'll come up to you and they'll say to, you know, they'll see you someplace. You said, you remember that time in 1962 you gave me a ticket for no headlight?
They remember.
Well, here's the one for you. How many tickets have you ever had in your life?
I don't think I've had one.
Yeah.
I've had warnings.
I don't think I've had any.
Most people can remember that. I've never had one.
I think they feel sorry for me.
Yeah, you get those big blue eyes and wiping tears and all that stuff.
No, I was either pregnant or kids in the car screaming.
But I think most people can say, yeah, I got a ticket. Well, when did you get it? Well, I got it in 1959. Who'd you get it from? I got it from that darn patrolman. I never did like him. And they like him until you give them a ticket, then they don't like you so good no more.
Yeah.
And I've had people that, you know, you'll talk to them and say, do you remember when you stopped me? And I said, yeah. Did you have it coming? Yeah. Any hard feelings? No. And then the next guy is totally opposite. And he says, yeah, you gave me a ticket, and I don't want nothing to do with you. You're the bad guy.
You know, I have to say, I've only been stopped a couple times, and both times I was just totally honest and said,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, I was in a hurry, I was going here, or, you know, explained the situation, and I guess maybe they were in a good mood that day, so they always said, okay, now, slow down.
99% of the officers, when they get out of their patrol car to come up to that vehicle, know probably what they're going to do because you have dictated the circumstance. Let's say, for example, you're driving 63 mile an hour out here on the 55, that's 8 over, right? Anybody can do that. I've looked down when I was working, and now that I'm not working, I've looked down on, you know, you get preoccupied. You look down, you're going 70 mile an hour, and you go, oh my God, I'm going 70 mile an hour. And then for people to actually say, that doesn't run a cruise control, that, no, I wasn't speeding, can't say that, because there's times that you just get over it. But that officer, when he gets out of the car, he knows pretty much what he's going to do.
So you're saying 99% of the time, they know.
Yeah, I walk up to your car for 63, 64 mile an hour, 99% of the time you're going to get a warning ticket. It's just something that, it's not that serious. You kind of slipped up. And here's the other side of the story. Let's say that you get stopped in this, and what I used to do, I'd say, all right, this is a $37 fine. I'll tell you what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a choice. You can either pay the $37, or when you get home, I want you to take your family out for supper on this $37 or fill your car up with gas. And a lot of people come back and said, I remember when you told me that. But what feeling would you have toward that officer if he was a pretty decent guy and he said, I'm going to let you go, but you know, watch it not. Or then if he just give you the ticket. When he gives you a ticket, you're mad, usually. But when he says, well, I'm going to give you a break here, but let's not make it a habit of it, they remember that, and they might look at law enforcement a little bit different. We see law enforcement now, you know, like where I would not want to be a police officer in the metro areas, like Los Angeles and New York. Them officers out there, they're so confused now, they don't know what to do.
You never know what you're going to encounter.
No.
Well,
even if you do, you know, you go out there now with all these problems and all these people, you don't know whether they're on drugs or they're going to shoot you. And if they, it's just like these situations where officer. We went to so many different schools and we saw films, shoot, don't shoot. And they'll give you somebody walking in that door with a mask on and shoot or don't shoot. And that person, whether it's a male, female, you've got a split second to decide, and you better be right. Because the people that are going to try you is going to sit there for months in an air-conditioned office to see if he was right or wrong. I would not want to be a police officer in the metro area. I would, if I should go around again, I'd love to be a police officer in Fairfield. I'll give you two a $64 question. We're talking about the past, now we'll come to the future. If the good Lord would come in this room right now and say to you, I'm going to let all three of us, all four of us, return to a younger age. You could go back to a younger age, but you've got to make your mind up right now, and that's for the listening audience too. I'm going to let you go back to a younger age. Would you go back? If so, how far? And if you could go around again, would you make any changes? Would you go back to a younger age?
I don't know.
I would.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd be 17 so quick. I'd like to go through it all again. I don't dread
Well, see,
getting...
now if I could go back and be as smart as I am now, then
Right.
that's my
Right.
catch. I'd have to negotiate.
There's no negotiating with him.
Okay.
He might negotiate with the courts, but he's the final judge. He doesn't listen to these lawyers. He tells you the way it's going to be. But I've always asked that question: if I could go back, if you could go back, if we could go back, would you? If so, how far? And would you do anything different? I'd like to go back, and I'm sure that we all look in the mirror.
What would you do different?
Oh, I think we've all got skeletons, things that we're not too proud of in our past. I think I'd be a lot more religious person than I have been. I believe, but I'm not a very religious person when it comes to going to church. And you know, and I see what the courts are doing now. They take prayer out of this, they take this out of that. You know, I think we're going the wrong direction. And they always talk about the forefathers. I think if the forefathers could see what we've done with the Constitution today, they'd probably rewrite parts of it because it's kind of fouled up out there. But anyway, back to the, was you on the highway patrol? Still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was your most scary thing?
Probably arresting Billy Sutherland's killer. You remember that? Happened north of Mount Pleasant way back when. Quick thing.
Well, my dad was involved in
Yep.
that. And I believe he is the one that found the gun.
I wasn't scared. I was scared of what I would do. Because for those that haven't heard, don't know, or forgot, there was a man that Patrolman Hugh Harden was chasing in Van Buren County. And he went down a road, bailed out, took off in the field. And the big manhunt took place. They pulled people in. And Billy Sutherland, he was called down as a Jefferson County Police Reserve. He was sitting on a gravel road in the Milton area. This guy walked up to him and something went wrong. And this guy can say, this is what happened. We don't know. There was two people there. Billy Sutherland lost his life that night, and the other guy probably told the truth. Larry Wayne Parsons was the guy's name. Very easy to identify, about 6'5", weighed about 130 pounds.
Was he a local person?
No, I'm not going to say, I know he wasn't local. I'm going to say, I think he come from the Fort Madison area. That's just a guess, that might be wrong. But anyway, he ended up getting Billy Sutherland's gun that night and killing Billy Sutherland. And a long trial ensued in Van Buren County. He was found guilty of murder. He was put away for life. And like some of the other things, when they put people away for life, you know, it's you see him around here pretty quick. But he escaped, got away somewhere. I think they put him on one of these non-violence places, you know. In segregation down there in the
Is he still alive?
Yes, still in Fort Madison.
Oh, okay.
And he'll die there.
So they
Okay.
found him after he escaped, and he's
Yeah.
back there.
And kills Billy Sutherland, and we, a lot of people, captured him. When you get a manhunt, you can't say that you caught him.
Sure.
We caught him. Everybody. And there's another thing that we have some problem with now is trying to hog all the glory for yourself. There's not enough policemen around to do the job if we all work together. And we all start going our own little ways and not communicating and telling the other departments what's going on, somebody's going to get hurt. Because we know that there's certain people in southeast Iowa that are bad people. And who is more likely to stop them? Probably a state trooper, or a city police officer, or a deputy sheriff for some minor traffic violation. So let's say that guy, he's a two-time loser, and he knows the next time he gets in trouble, he's going away for a long, long time. Now, let's say that the state trooper gets him for speeding. That's what I have, and I said that 99% of the time when I get out of the car, I know what I'm going to do with the guy. I've stopped him for speeding. What's he think he's being stopped for? Drugs or something a lot more serious. He says, this time I'm going away. So you walk up to the car with a little warning ticket in your hand for a speeding ticket, and he shoots you. That's all there is to it. And then they have a little funeral, and then we'll talk about, we're going to have a long, lengthy trial and spend a lot of money on him, but nobody's really going to worry about my widow or my kids. That's kind of on the back page someplace.
Well, you know, I don't know if you watched the news last night, but, you know, in Texas they had another execution.
Yeah,
and
Gary Grimm.
And this gentleman went through, how many, 32 appeals or something? I mean,
30 some odd.
It was an incredible
Yeah.
amount of appeals. And, you know, they were still saying, well, there were witnesses that hadn't been brought forth, and yet on the flip side of that, and of course I've just watched the thing last night, so I don't know all the details, but But the flip side of that was that the defense attorney didn't want to bring those witnesses because they felt they wouldn't hold up in court. So,
like you,
I mean,
watch it. There's a lot of things that television doesn't tell us.
Right.
Sure.
But here's a $64 question. If you feel comfortable answering the question, fine. If you don't, then that's fine too. Do you believe in capital punishment?
Well, I was going to ask you.
I do. I definitely
You
do. If we know, and without all this 19 years of appeal and millions of dollars and all this stuff, and I know you can't say, all right, we're going to have this decided a year from today. You've got to give that individual every right that he has coming.
Sure.
But you also have to give the victim every right that they've got coming. Just like last night, did you hear anything about the people that he killed or the family of the person he killed? Very little.
I did not hear too much about that, but there was one gentleman that he met up with him after he'd already killed this other individual, and he had a pretty harrowing story.
Oh, that's the guy that shot his leg off, and he said he was going to kill you, and then he's going to go back and take the rest out.
Yeah.
You know, a person like that does not...
Pretty awful.
He does not belong in society under no conditions, and you've got to put those people away, and I mean away, forever and ever and ever. And the controversy on capital punishment will go on forever and ever. Do you?
I am not sure.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I don't think I do, but yet I know there are people that are not, you cannot rehabilitate, and they need to be put away forever.
Do you think that, not that we're experts in this field, but I think we pay taxes, we got the right to talk about it. Do you think that when we put people away for a long, long time, and they talk about hard labor, that's what really goes on in prison? Most of them sit around and do nothing all the time.
Lots of things that go on that we don't know
I didn't think
about.
there was basically any labor going on, really.
Well,
I think that's a good idea, though. I think
my view, yeah, exactly. I mean, they need to be productive in some way instead of sitting and watching TV and wasting their mind all day. And maybe that's a pretty stereotypical statement on my part, and I'm not educated enough on which I'm in that area, which I'm sure I'm not.
Isn't there
But it seems to me that they are doing productive things.
And isn't there a new trend for hard labor, or they're trying it a little bit more?
You see in some of the states, some of the southern states, you know, they got chain gangs going again. And a lot of people say, well, you know, just like our prisoners here in Jefferson County, if you want to go on a scale that we can probably understand more, make them do something. And the guy says, well, what are you going to have them do? Well, do
anything.
Yeah. They said, well, what will happen in a lot of cases, you're going to put somebody out there picking up pop cans, and he's going to throw his back out, and he's going to sue the county. So you about as better to leave him in there to watch TV as you are hassle with him.
Yeah, but aren't there indoor jobs of some kind that people could do? I mean, we need to get
If I was
more
an
creative
inmate,
and
I'd want to get out of there I'd want to go pick up pop cans or
I
something.
couldn't stand to sit there and...
Well, we were scheduled in 1962 was the last, well, Iowa does not have capital punishment, but in 1962 they did have. And at that time, if you were a peace officer and wanted to witness an execution, in 1962, death in Iowa was by hanging. And
it was by hanging, really?
And we were going down there and watch it. And I was young, and I thought, boy, this is something I want to see. And I've always had second thoughts about that. Had I seen that, actually and they always talk about cruel and unusual treatment, but how about these poor victims? How'd they die? They don't talk about that too much.
So did you go see it?
No,
you didn't?
That's when they abolished it. Okay. And I've thought to this day on, would I have, I shouldn't learn from it, would not enjoy it, but like the people that came out last night from Huntsville, Texas, you could tell.
What effect.
Yeah, it's to watch somebody actually die. We can sit back there and second guess whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether we believe, whether we disbelieve. But I think everybody has their own values on it, and I think that's something that should be yours and yours alone. But boy, I had a little tough time with some of these guys. Know that there's no doubt about it. This person is the bad guy. And then to fool around with these guys for 20 years.
Well, you know, the millions of dollars that I'm sure was spent through all this appeal process, and not that they shouldn't have an appeal process, but it seems like he certainly had his chance.
Yeah, he had his day in court.
And not that every particular case is perfect in every way. I mean, we do see problems in the court system, and yet on the other hand, what's a better alternative? You know, nobody's come up with a better alternative at this point.
I think I always watch the O'Reilly Factor. He's my man. Did you ever watch him on television?
Oh, yeah, I got on there. Did you see?
He's my guy. No, that's right.
I emailed.
That's right. But anyway,
I sent him an email and it was on TV.
He's interesting because he kind of looks at it from a lot of different angles. But he's a very well-versed person, and he's, again, capital punishment. And by the things that we've seen where wrongfully accused have been convicted and, you know, executed, and I think that's where your thoughts come from. We got to be right on this one because we don't get it.
I guess I always try to keep an open mind, and when a subject comes up, I try and look at both sides.
Well, and there certainly is that question of, can a person that we absolutely think cannot be rehabilitated, can they actually have some spiritual awakening and turn into a good person?
Well, normally, not
I think they're few and far between.
Well, a lot of them get
I think you're probably
find religion in jail because that makes them look better to the parole board.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I guess once you have a personal experience, and we have, trying to help someone and just learn the hard way.
Would you right now, years ago we used to hitchhike when I was in the service in the 50s, and they'd pick a military guy up.
Oh, I used to pick people up.
Yeah, would you now?
I'm not sure. My grandfather
wouldn't.
always picked people up, and he always told me that he wanted, you know, remember this. So
I wouldn't pick them up. I don't care if it was raining or snowing or blowing.
I wouldn't even pick up a lady.
Yeah,
because that's something that you can avoid by driving by. Once you stop, you might be biting off more than you can chew. But if I was to go around again, I'd probably be a highway patrolman. I would want it to be in a little town like Fairfield again. I'd want it to be in the Midwest. And like I said before, everybody likes law enforcement as long as it doesn't cost very much. They don't want to pay much for the service. And as long as it doesn't apply to them. They always like to read the paper where so-and-so got picked up for this, that, or the other thing. They think that's great. But when their name goes in the paper, they don't think that's so good then.
Well, for the citizens, what can they do to make their law enforcement people feel appreciated? What's the best thing that we could do for our local police or highway patrol around here? I mean,
I think the officers, the overall picture. I don't like to say the city police or the sheriff's office. I like to say law enforcement because it's all of us out there trying to do the same thing, and there's enough work to all do it and do it together, and let the other guy know what's going on. But unfortunately, with budgets, they come in and they'll say, "Well, we did all this, and they didn't do all that, so we need more money than they need." But when you're talking about somebody who might get hurt out there or somebody might get killed out there. When I was on the patrol for 32 years, I had my gun out on people to say, you know, you're under arrest and all that stuff. I never fired a shot at anybody, and I was never shot at. And when the last day come around, when you go to Des Moines, turn all your stuff in, and you come back to Joe Civilian, I think that's one thing that ran through my mind. And I was really glad to say the last day that I took the uniform off, I could say that. Because to take somebody's life, I don't think I'd had any trouble shooting at somebody that shot at me or endangered me. I don't think that would have been ever a problem that I couldn't have. I might not wanted to have dealt with it after, but as far as the instinct to protect myself, I could have killed somebody or shot somebody. But I was glad when it was all over that it never came my way.
I'd say that's a great record.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a really great
But that's Midwest. You know, in New York City, they're blazing away like shoot out the OK Corral over there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a cousin who is a police officer in Dallas, and he's been in, I think, 2, 3, 4 shootouts.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and
usually when they had internal affairs come on, it seemed like some of the departments try and find the policeman wrong, not trying to defend him on what he did, you know. And I would like to have all these critics of police shootings be in police shoes at that same situation and see what they'd have done under like conditions.
Well, let me ask you this. We've had a couple cases where, you know, like the one up in New York where the
41 shots?
Yeah. It was a black guy or another race or something, I forget it. Well, whatever. And obviously all the police officers or the officers that were involved were white. So would it be helpful, do you think, that in places like New York City, LA, you know, the big areas, that, and maybe it wouldn't be possible all the time, but for a lot of times that a black officer and a white officer go together on patrol.
They do that. One of the problems they had with that particular
as
situation.
much as they can, so
yeah,
that
they try and
when they're in those areas,
yeah,
those kinds
they
of
understand their culture.
Can be avoided or.
Yeah, they understand the culture.
Okay.
The problem in a lot of situations is we get people that can't speak English. And that really puts everybody at a disadvantage because this individual, evidently, according to some of the transcript, was trying to tell the police officer something. They didn't understand it because he was not speaking English. And that really put a cloud out there. And then the shots were fired, and by then it's too late. But I always, here's another thing, I think that if you want to come to America, you should speak English. And I think when you, anything that gets my blood pressure up is when you go to a store and you get a bunch of people in there talking in something other than English. I think if you want to be an American, be an American. Don't be, if you want to speak your language, don't speak it in America. If you haven't got enough respect for America, and just think of what you had before you got here compared to what you now have, I think they could
I guess
at least...
after time, I think I agree, but I know that after traveling, whoa.
Yeah.
How you feel not being able to speak. And
would you travel? Do you like travel?
Oh, we travel a lot.
Do you feel comfortable traveling?
Yes.
Abroad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, my wife would probably go with you tomorrow, but I like Fairfield. I mean, when I travel, Birmingham, Iowa, that's it. If I go south for the winter, it's Birmingham. I have my cup of coffee and back I come.
We have traveled a lot, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I guess it has made me understand the culture differences and language and how I feel when everyone else is speaking a different language. And
but I look at it differently. If they want to come here and live in America and they want to,
and hopefully, you know, that they will after time learn it.
I hate to be in some of those, you know, you talk about some of the problems that we don't even fathom, like in Texas where they've got that problem.
Well, then you have so many people that are speaking Spanish that it's not as important, or they're not. Because the people speak Spanish, which is more comfortable.
Well, it is.
And it's like if you were in France and, boy, here come some friends from America that speak English, you'd want to hang around them, too.
Yeah, get right in there, you bet.
So, boy, it's another one of those things
$64 questions.
Of opening the door and trying to understand.
But anyway, the patrol has been good. I'm glad it's over.
And what year did you retire then?
62 to 93.
93. So, retired in 93, you've been not carrying a gun for 7 years.
That's another
Except for maybe to hunt.
The state of Iowa said I could carry a gun for 32 years. You can't get a gun permit in Jefferson County. Does that make any sense at all?
You can't.
No. You can?
You can't?
I can't. Other, if you're not a certified police officer.
What does that mean?
A handgun?
A handgun?
A handgun.
Okay.
Yeah.
My husband hunts, and he has lots of.
So you can have a rifle or a shotgun,
but just not a handgun.
What we get into is transportation, getting it from home to where you want to do your thing. So if you
can have it at home, you're saying?
Yeah. Well, you can now, and I'm sure you can always have guns, but we get NRA, and then we get the other side of the coin. They're fighting about what needs to be done with guns to make America safer. I'm no rocket scientist, but I know passing more laws is not going to solve the problem, because they don't even enforce the laws that's on the books right now. You know, we got the Brady law, and we got this, and we got that. So make some good laws, but put some teeth in it. If you violate the gun law, you're going to jail for X amount of time, and you're not going to get out for finding Jesus or behaving yourself. You're going to stay there for 10, 15, 5, whatever the law prescribes. But it seems like you read about it in the paper, they say that somebody got 20 years in jail. And by golly, in 4 or 5 here he is popping up again. But
and a lot of times they are the people that are wanting the gun. I think that's the problem.
Right now, how long would it take for you to find a gun? They talk about this 3-5 day waiting period. If I want to kill somebody, I don't have to wait 5 days. I'll find a knife, a ball bat, or something.
Yeah.
I'll get the job done. But what I don't like to see him is to come into my home and tell me inside of my home what I have to do with the firearm. I have a service revolver that I had when I worked. It's in my bedroom. It's not loaded. The shells are very close. If somebody comes into my house, they're going to have problems, big problems, because I'm not going to wait around to see if they're in there to use the telephone or trick-or-treating. something's going to happen, because it's going to happen to them rather than to me. And now if they come along with this rule that says, well, you've got to have a gun lock on it, you got to have shells on this side of the house, you got to have the gun on this side of the house, I have no protection at all.
Well, it does seem
Well,
a
how are
little
they-
silly that here we have an ex-patrolman that can't have a license,
Carry a firearm, yeah.
but you have someone that's doing it illegal.
Oh, the
that
bad guy,
has it.
yeah.
Right.
Well,
so
and
that doesn't make
yeah.
sense.
No.
And
the
there's
bad guys
also
always
a
should have
point
got a
of
gun.
not, it's pointless to put a law in the books that nobody
don't
can enforce.
yeah.
That's silly.
My grandchildren are coming tomorrow, and they're 5 and 7. And they're as you well know, they're very inquisitive. They love guns. So some people, if you grow up around guns, you enjoy, my stepfather, he didn't own a gun, and whatever possessed me to go the way that I went through life with guns and traps and all that sort of thing, I don't know. But when those kids come to my house, they know when they get there what the rules are. That they're not to be fooling with them guns. None of them are going to be loaded, naturally. The shells are going to be pretty close there. And I know we got the critics out there say, well, he's all wrong. They can get the shells and they can put a gun. They know better. But a lot of these kids, and here comes the critic again, well, he come from an abused family and they beat on him and he didn't have a chance in life. So this justifies him going to school and killing a whole bunch of people. You've got to take responsibility. Last night they were talking about a person that committed murder at the age of 17. Now, I don't care how old you are, in my opinion, if you kill somebody, whether you're 7 or 17, you should have some degree of responsibility. I can see maybe somebody 7 not knowing what's going on. But when you get 17, you've been around long enough that you should know right from wrong.
Absolutely.
But anyway, then we go to the trapping issue. Want to go there, or are we still talking highway
Well,
patrol?
we're talking what you've been doing in your retirement since, well, I shouldn't say retirement, since you've been off the force.
I like to get up early. I go to bed early. I like to work every day. Winter months we do a lot of snow shoveling. We don't use the trucks. We use the old-fashioned little snow plows and the little shovels, and away we go.
And you do some gardening in the summer,
Yeah,
right?
we do a lot of gardening, and I mow 27 yards every week.
Oh,
And
wow.
we just got done doing a lot of landscaping. Was down on Jackson Street, seeding that all down, and after the rain came, we'll probably be
Now,
down
when you say we, who's this
Gene
we?
Book, he's my partner.
Okay.
Yeah, Gene and I. He's got junky equipment, and so do I, but we get the job done.
And
the
we
good thing
should,
is
we should
paid for.
introduce your wife, too.
Ruth?
Ruth.
She works at the Iowa State Bank up there with Connie. She's got a short period of time to go, and she's going to be one of those 62 and outs. And I don't know, then another issue, when you get to be 62, you're going to wait till 65, you're going to... I'm going. I'm 62. I was over in Burlington last week. I applied for Social Security. I'm not going to get much, but I'm not going to wait till I'm 65. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. My mother never, and she worked hard. I was talking about, you know, washing clothes and stuff for other people. She never collected one Social Security check. Nothing.
Yeah.
She's just one of them that, the old way, you know, Mom was a heavy set gal, smoked like a chimney. Went to bed with a cigarette in her mouth. First thing she did in the morning, her and Dad and her puffing away. And called one day and said, your mother's gone, you know. Have either one of you lost your parents yet? Oh, boy. And I'll tell you, you never appreciate, in my case, when I was on the patrol, my mother lived in Wapello. I could have driven over there every day and got paid for it, free transportation, but I always made up a reason that I thought was more important than not to go see Mom. And then one day the phone rang, and if you talk about going back and doing it right, that's one thing I would have really done differently. Because my sisters, who's 2 of them, they still live over Wapello, because Mom would call and say, when are you coming over? Oh, I'll be over Wednesday. But Wednesday come, Thursday come, Friday, and my mother would tell my 2 sisters, well, he's coming. And believe it or not, I'm looking forward to my daughter coming home and the grandkids. I really am. I mean, I really am. But I just put myself first, not knowing that my mother was 50, 60, and one day she's not going to be there, and you're going to experience the same thing. And everybody's relationship with your family is different. Some of them are real tight, and some of them are not so tight. But I'll tell you another thing, just like this execution, when they're gone, they're gone. And I go out to if there's anything in life that I really, there's a lot of things there, but I really have a guilt feeling on, and that was my mother not going to see her when I should have.
Well, I feel good because this morning I got up at 7 o'clock and I went out to my parents and I dug around in their garden because I thought they needed help.
Yeah.
And I felt so excited when I thought of doing this the night before thinking.
Had a good feeling when you left too, didn't you?
Yes,
You
I was so glad I went, and I just thought.
Were they glad you came?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yes,
and I thought I need to do this more.
Yeah. And will you?
That's the question. Will I
That's
find
kind of like people going to church, like me, that hardly ever go. But when you do go, you really feel good about yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So another big part of your life is trapping, and that's what we have here behind us is a trap. And Roy's going to talk about
what kind of trap
trapping
is that?
and.
Well, we'll talk about what a lot of people are just. This isn't really a gray issue. This here is kind of black and white, either 40 or not.
Well, are we talking trapping for money, or do you trap for money?
I used to
in the
trap.
wintertime?
Well, yeah, I can't say you don't, because if you're just out there to kill animals, we eat a lot of the meat that we trap. I really do. Ruth, great cooker of meat. Last night we had deer meat. Night before that, I think we had bass, fish. So we eat a lot of things that we get, and a lot of people, how can you eat that stuff, you know? But to me, I'm a meat eater. That's all there is to it.
Right, and you grew up. That's a part of the way you grew up.
But anyway, we have a wild game feed that a lot of guys spend a lot of time getting squirrels, rabbits, you name it, and we take it up there, and it's an annual get-together for a lot of people that haven't got a wife anymore.
That's at the Elks, right?
At the Elks. Or there's a lot of women that just totally refuse to cook wild game. You too, maybe?
Well,
Pat loves to cook, so I don't have that problem. I let him do it.
Do you eat what he cooks if it's wild?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. You enjoy?
I grew up having my mother fixing squirrel, my mother cleaning the squirrel. I've cleaned fish before.
yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. My mom would always say, it tastes like chicken. Mom, it doesn't taste like chicken.
You know what does taste like chicken?
Chicken?
Turtle.
I've heard that.
Right.
No,
Sure.
honest to God.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
There are some things
We
I
won't talk to her no
like.
more.
I like more than others, and you know.
I can say the only thing
What?
that I really liked in wild meat was duck.
Now that's one thing I don't like because it's so dry.
You need to
Well,
have it fixed right.
Well, that's
right.
it. See, my
If
wife
it's
don't
not
like ducks,
fixed
so we got it in our mind we're not
Right.
going to cook a duck.
Right.
But if you do it
If
the
it's
right way, it's
fixed
If you
excellent.
fix
Good.
any of it right, it's
Yeah.
probably really good.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing that I've ever come across that I
Now,
said,
you
yeah, I really
say
like
duck,
this.
how about, have you ever ate wild turkey?
Yes.
I don't know.
You enjoy? If you used to get a butterball out here at Hy-Vee or the wild one, which would you go for?
The butterball,
I think
of course.
I think I might go with you on that
Of
one.
course. Now, our son-in-law, he grew up in Cedar Rapids, the city, and he's always being teased by my husband and his family about having squirrel like Beverly Hillbillies.
Well,
and so we threatened that we're going to serve him squirrel one of these days.
We had
my
a,
great aunt took
go ahead.
squirrel back from Fairfield on the plane to Seattle because she loves squirrel.
Yeah.
So she has done that several times. My grandmother would call around her old buddies like after my grandpa was gone and say, got any squirrel in your freezer? And they'd bring her over a squirrel.
Yeah,
so
now Rhonda
find
goes
out.
back, she's going to take turtle with her, she'll take fish with her, she'll take deer with her, she will. But it's just mind over matter.
I think
guess.
squirrel's a little more uncommon to eat nowadays.
When you was growing up way back when, was that in your...
back when.
Was that...
It
your-
was a little different.
Most of your fathers hunted.
Yeah, we ate squirrel and quail.
Yeah, it was just part of it, you know. You
No,
went.
squirrel and pheasant.
Yeah,
Yes.
a lot of people. There's two people. There's a lot of people that'll hunt. They'll go hunting on opening day of pheasant season and opening day of deer season. The rest of the time they don't do anything. But we probably spend 3 or 4 days a week during the snow season hunting rabbits or whatever is legal. But it's not just to kill it and walk away and leave it. Normally we'll take the spoils from it. We'll take it to the wild game feed and where the people come and
That's
enjoy it.
what my husband Pat says. He says, I can't kill it if we're not going to eat it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just to kill something or trap it, just no. That, I don't
Right.
agree with that anymore.
Well, tell us about this particular trap. Richard, can you see this okay? Do we need to turn it or it's okay?
what kind of trap is it?
Well, it's a like I said, I've got 6 or 10 of these out, and that's pretty much the run of the mill where people call to trap inside the city limits of Fairfield because you have a varmint problem. You just can't put a trap of any type in the city limits. To do this legally, you have to make a written request to the chief of police,
I didn't know.
and he will okay it.
Oh, really? Did we do that?
Well, here's what happens. Let's say that I come over to your place and set a trap for a coon that's in your garbage. You're one of these that are totally against trapping, and you see what we're doing over there. So you call the DNR or you call the police, and they say they're over there trapping. So we're trapping inside the city limits, illegal. We're trapping without a license.
Oh, okay.
So we get in a lot of trouble. What the chief of police can do, or the DNR, if it's outside the city limits, they say it's okay. So if you get over there...
We've had possums in our garage, and we thought we were going to have to call someone then.
But this trap right here is it's a trap that it's called a box or cage, whatever you want to call it. It's just like the door of your house. It opens up, and in town, if I'm going to trap for raccoons, I'm going to use marshmallows. Because if I use something with a fish base to it, I'm going to catch every cat in the neighborhood.
Oh.
And I have no problem with cats. Cats are all right, and you know, they get their little mice and do their little thing. But once he goes in there, because a cat will not eat a marshmallow. A possum will, a coon will, darn sure. So you put a few little marshmallows out here, you put a few here, and then you put some back here by back. And animals are a pig. If there's 10 marshmallows out there, they're going to want 11. So he goes in there, and then the lid comes shut. Now, I can do with him as I see fit.
Now, wait a minute. What trips it after
he steps on a little platform back here.
So this doesn't like shoot a sharp thing through the animal.
Nope.
It's just trapped in the cage.
It's a live trap.
Cage trap. See, right now I can pick him up and do whatever I want with him. I had a guy call last night. He lives in the country. He raises chickens. He's got a skunk in one of these traps, and he called and said, "What am I going to do with it?" I said, "I'm not sure." They say, and I believe this, if you have a skunk and you don't hurt it or you don't scare it, it won't do its thing. And I know a guy one time that had a skunk in a leg hole trap, and there wasn't much left, so he took a knife and walked right up to that skunk and very gently cut the remaining skin off, and the skunk, down over the hill he went now. But
and said thank you on his way, huh?
The problem with this, there's two good things about it. One is it eliminates your problem. You have this in your garbage. You want to get rid of it. So I catch it, I pick it up, and I move it over to her house. So I'm not solving a problem, I'm just giving it to somebody else, really.
Yeah, but don't you take them out in the country?
I would say that Trish out there at Jefferson County Park, we take a lot of them out there. And I never will forget one time when I was on the river growing sweet corn. Coon, if you think you like coon, try and grow sweet corn. You won't like coon very long because they just really make a mess. Well, every morning I would see this truck coming, about daylight. I would be going this way, and this old truck would be going that way. And I saw him for about a week or 10 days. And one day I saw him in the restaurant. I said, "What are you doing every morning?" He says, "I'm moving my coon." And what was happening is I was catching him at my place, he was catching him at his place, and every morning we just kind of shuttled him back and forth. But one day we had this lady, and she was with the college here in town, and she was pretty adamant about don't hurt animals. And she says, never will forget this story, she says, "I live by a creek, I've got a deck at the back of my house, and I've got bird feeders, and every night something comes up and gets in my bird feeders and, quote, leaves doo-foo on my deck." That's her story.
Oh, we had that going for a while. Raccoon, right?
Yes, or a possum, right?
Yes, both of them.
And she says, "I'll let you come and trap it if you promise you won't hurt it." I said, "That's not a problem. What kind of a trap will you use?" "A live trap." "What's a live trap? What'll happen?" I says, "You'll go in there and you'll run back and forth a little bit, but it's not going to be life-threatening. You'll be okay." She said, "When can you come?" I says, "I'll be over tomorrow." She says, "That'll be fine." That night, it was in the summer months, she left home, and it was hot. She left her main door open, screen door shut. Well, here come Mother Coon with the little ones. Went by the house, smelled something in there that drew their attention, chewed a hole in the screen, and in they went. So now I want you to imagine this.
In their house.
Mama Coon and probably half a dozen little ones in your house where you're not there. They tore off every curtain, off every window trying to get out. They do food everywhere in the house. If you can imagine getting up on your table and upsetting this and upsetting that and just literally destroying your house. She called me back, but she just kept saying, "Now don't hurt the animal, because if you're going to hurt him, I don't want you to come on." She called me back about 11 o'clock at night. She says, "I don't care how you get rid of it. She come out with a gun, shoot him, just whatever it takes. I just want to get rid of him." So she kind of looked at, saw both sides of the picture. But these things are good, but you asked the question, do I trap for money? Not really. I used to be able to kill animals pretty easily, and I didn't have any, it didn't bother me that much, but I guess as the years go by, you get an animal in this trap and you want the hide off of it or the meat off it. How are you going to get it? You just pull up a gun and he looks for you right in the face and you pull the trigger. And it's not a pretty thing, but that's the way it goes. But when we first started trapping when I was 10 years old, if you went out and caught 2 or 3 raccoon in the whole season, boy, you was a big trapper. But how come so many animals have moved to town?
Well, because we're
I
all
think
going
we've
out,
moved
out
out.
of the country.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's so much out there. They're trying to find a place to survive. And where do most raccoons that live in Fairfield live at? You know, where do they live at?
Around my house.
But we're at
Under porches or
woods.
something?
no, they live in the storm sewers.
The storm sewers.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Down there, a lot of places you'll see that where because it's like a cave, it's a constant temperature. And when they crawl down there, they'll find a ledge or something to stay on, get out of the whatever.
I didn't know that.
It's cool, and it's never hot, and it's never cold. And down there on Jefferson or Wilson Street, down there by your sister's, she's got a place down there, and it's just it's like a Grand Central Station. You get down there early in the morning, late at night, down the hole they go, and that night out they come again. And when an animal comes out of
Over by me. I
well,
know.
true.
I know.
When an animal comes out let's say a raccoon, which is a night animal, when he comes out at night, what's his intent?
Eat.
Eat and drink. He's
And
just
get
like
in my
people.
fountain and wash his hands or its paws
Yeah.
off. And one day we saw tracks, you know, 2 muddy tracks on the patio to the fountain, and then
We had one time, what would you do? Let's say that you're out someplace. And we always tell the kids, we go to 2 trapping clinics every year. One at Lake Darling, where all the Washington County kids come down. And then we go out here to the Jefferson County Park, where all the Jefferson County kids come down. And we always ask them this question: what would you do if you was out someplace and you saw a small animal, such as a rabbit or a squirrel or a coon, that looks to be abandoned? Would you pick it up, take it home, and try and raise it?
no, because
No.
usually if you
No.
see one out like that, there's something wrong with it, right? There are
Probably
different-
something wrong, or mother's very close.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a raccoon one time for 4 years, and he was a pet. You know, I mean, you talk about a pet, he was a pet. And you could do anything. Walk around the backyard, he'd follow you, go up a tree, and you say, come on, let's go. And down the tree, coming in the house. And kids from town would come out and pick him up and play with him. And for 4 years I had him. He was a male coon. And one time I was out north of Fairfield, I remember this. On the highway, there was a raccoon that had been hit by a car. And I said, well, I'm going to take that thing home and take the hide off of it, and I'll sell it. Well, anyway, never give it a nickel's worth of thought. I skinned that animal. It was a female, and I got her smell on my hands. And what I used to always do is before I left for work, I'd reach in that cage and I'd dump in the food for that raccoon. And I reached in, oh, out he
Oh,
comes.
you scared me.
Scared me too. But he come charging out of that hole, and he took a hold of me, and I ended up with 23 stitches.
Wow.
No kidding.
4 years, docile as could be, like a mouse.
Wow.
And he just reverted back to the wild. And I said, I'm not going to keep him. So I gave him to another guy, patrolman, that lived in Donaldson that had coonhounds. And he said, I'll take him. I'd like to have one. And I saw him a couple, 3 days later. I said, how you getting along? He said, that thing bit me. I said, what did you finally do with it? I turned him loose.
Yeah.
But don't try to take these things home and bottle feed them and all this stuff, because you're just asking for a lot of trouble. And other than that, it's illegal. You can't take them home and raise them without a breeder's license.
Now, is coon and possum the most thing that you trap here in Fairfield when people call you?
Coon, possum, and squirrels. I had down by the country club, there was a lady last summer. She called and she had a bunch of flowers. She's really a flower gal, and she put shrubs, or not shrubs, but mulch all the way around their house. And she called me and said, every day I get up and they just dug that to pieces. So I went down and we started setting traps. We caught 23 coon,
Wow.
7 possums, and 1 red fox inside the city limits of Fairfield, down by the country club.
We saw
Fox
that
even.
fox a lot.
Oh, well, we turned him loose. We just let him go again.
And it has been better this year without something digging in my pots and flowers.
Well, this gal, if you can imagine 23 coon coming in pretty regular and just, and why do they dig in that stuff? Because that's where the grubs are at, because there's moisture underneath there, so they just tear it all apart. And every morning she'd go out there and...
One day, our daughter Mackenzie, when she was littler, went out in the garage, and she came in from the garage, and she says, I just kicked that cat with a mask on. And we,
That a lady one time called and she said, I went into my computer room and there's a raccoon in town sitting on top of her computer.
Ooh.
She said, what do I do? I said, just open the doors, they'll eventually go out. The one that I have a lot of trouble catching is bats. You referred to. They're a
So
thing
what's
that's...
the best thing to do for those if you got those in your
The
house?
time you got them in the attic, what you want to do is you want to go up there with a bunch of floodlights, turn them on. Now, when we lived on Jackson Street, we had rats and bats all the time. It was just common occurrence because we lived in a low part of town, and the rats come up through the sewer system, and the bats would come down through the chimney.
So they don't like the light?
No, they don't like light. So if you got a place in the attic, I know this will work. You know, a lot of people says take mothballs. Yeah. The only thing that's going to get sick is you.
Well, when we notice the bats is late at night when we have the lights on, and usually we're upstairs in our bedroom, and they fly straight upstairs to our bedroom where the light's on and start circling. And
well, that's what Ruth did one time. We was in there. When we had that.
First started circling.
Well, we had a rat one time, and he was in the kitchen at home. That's when we lived down on Jackson Street.
Everybody has a rat story, right?
Yeah, I remember your story.
I got 2 rat stories.
Well, anyway, long story short, Ruth called and she says, "You got to get home right away. I got a rat trapped underneath the kitchen stove." So I went home and I said, "What are we going to do here?" So I just took him on. I was on patrol, and then I just pulled out my gun under the stove and blasted him. She said,
out the wall.
Yeah, it did. Went right out through the wall and everything. It wasn't a pretty picture, but there wasn't no more rats. So anyway, we got down there, and we're like you. We're running around. We got this stupid looking outfit on. Kind of like a bee thing, you know.
Yes.
This guy came over to help me. I never will forget this. So he was going to come over and help me. And he smoked. And he had this bee outfit on. He had a cigarette going. And then he got his bee hat on fire. And he's running around the house. We're trying to put his little bee hat out. And we're running around there, tennis rackets and BB guns and everything else. And finally I said to Ruth, "We got to find a little better place to live." So we eliminated the problem. We just moved.
Oh, dear.
But on the trapping thing, I don't want anybody to think that what I do is totally right or your beliefs are totally right. And like you said all the way through the program, there's enough things out here that you can make a lot of compromise if you want. Don't get just so set in your way that yours is the only way.
Right. Just
because that's what
respect
turns
each
people
other's
off.
lifestyle and what you've grown up with. And
yeah, give and take and let the world by. But if you want something trapped, just give us a buzz. We'll come out.
So you'll be getting lots of calls now. You're going to be
I don't do it for free. I do it very cheap. But with gas money, here's what happens. They'll call me, so I run over there and I set the trap. Then I got to buy marshmallows. I got to spend time. I got to spend gas, and I got to run them down the country. I got to dump them out. So basically, all I'm asking for is just expenses. Just pay me what I've got wrapped up in it. It's not because about $10 is going to probably eliminate your problem, you know, unless you just got a multitude of problems.
Well, I've used his services, and he's good. So
well, yeah, you had.
I recommend him.
Yeah, you had, and we got rid of them by traps.
Yeah, we did. And you know, this last year we had squirrels in our attic, in our roof. That. You know, they chewed. I think they were in there when we redid our roof, and then they chewed their way out. And so we had Tim and Dan Boot come over. Or I guess Tim came over because we wanted to close it up because they were starting to damage the wall inside our bedroom. I mean, we have to, you know, from moisture. So Bob says, "Well, we'll just put the dog up there. She'll chase them out." So that's what they did. And now I think the squirrels were actually must have been out shopping for food that day, so they weren't in there. Shopping. But Bob put the dog in our attic, and he said he had a heck of a time getting the dog back in the house. And of course, she was a mess when she came out. Well, the other thing about animals in your attic, a lot of people. It was nasty.
Well, like you said, a lot of people, it just doesn't bother them. But what you better think about, if you get animals in your attic, they have a tendency to chew, especially squirrels. And if they get to chewing those wires up there, there's a very good chance your house will burn down. It really will.
That's something to really think about.
It is, because it happens. I know it's happened. Yeah. But if you got something you want taken care of, maybe we can help you, maybe we can't. It's not a guarantee, but that's the one that we use the trap for, and that's the one that most people will accept because they could just see an animal being in that trap. I had a lady one time that was out here in Gear Street. She had a coon in one of my live traps. We caught it, and she said she saw it go in at 11 o'clock at night. She called me at 1:30 in the morning, said, "Can you come out and do something with me now?" She said, "I can't sleep. All I can see is that little animal running back and forth." There's nothing I like better than at 1:30 in the morning, getting up, driving out in the country to get a doggone coon.
Yeah, I'll be right up.
Yeah, I'm on my way, baby.
Oh, dear.
But different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, it's always on a holiday or late at night or something.
Yeah.
I know one day, Mother's Day, I had a bunch of bees move in my house.
Where do you live? You've had bats and cats and
bees
coons
and possums and deer and spiders. The worst.
What do you got? Well, spiders.
Trap spiders.
You don't do this.
Yeah, tarantulas. Yeah, the
this
big
one's
ones.
big enough. I think it could.
Couldn't get out of there if it went in.
Oh
goodness.
Well, anyway, it's been an interesting life, and if I could probably say, would you go around again, I'd probably say yes. And would I go around again and do exactly the same thing, I'd probably say no. The changes that I'd make are minor, but I think if we all look back at our life, we live in an awful nice place right here in Fairfield, Iowa.
Well, I agree, totally. And I'd like to, how do we get on that best little towns in America list? That's what I want to know. Because I think we belong on that.
I'd agree with you. Fairfield's never even considered. But you've seen what has happened over the last 20 years. It used to be, you know, really a division, but now I think it's getting a lot better. It really is. And I do a lot of work for just about every walk of life of people in town, and boy, some of them are really nice to work for, and some of them you don't want to be there once.
Well, I know everyone that's used your services for this kind of thing is so appreciative, because if you weren't doing it, it would, I don't know what I would have done without
the DNR don't want to do it.
Years ago in our house, so I would have had to move. I'm sure.
Well, the DNR don't want to fool with it because it's never ending. I had a lady one time called me from Hedrick, and she had Hedrick, Iowa, and she had rabbits eating her cabbage, and she wanted me to just spin up there for do a little rabbit trapping. I said, no, you're kind of getting me out of my territory.
Yeah, wow.
But anyway,
rabbits is a tricky thing too. I mean, you know.
That was like that story.
You see one, you've seen a million, haven't you, or something like that?
This is the one that they had this story the other day. And they was talking about animals again. He's talking about, I'm sweating now. Anyway, he's talking about this guy is so bad. He's one of these gross farmers, and he says, I like cats. He said, I really do. He said, they taste a lot like rabbit. Oh, that was the worst story that he could have possibly came up with, because there were some people there that had a lot of cats, and he meant it in fun, but a lot of people didn't think it was too funny. But when we first started trapping, like I said before, there was no animals. Now, there animals are everywhere, and if you don't think that's right, drive from here to Mount Pleasant, here to Burlington, and see how many are hit on the road. They're just everywhere. And I remember one time when we were working, there was a lady up north of Richland. She was about 8 months, 3 weeks pregnant, and she was by herself coming down the road. She had a buck deer, and the deer slid across her hood, went through the windshield. One of the horns of the buck went through her head, killed her, killed the unborn child.
Oh, boy.
So they are a real danger out there. What would you do if you're driving down the road and you saw an animal out in front of you? What would you try and do? Would you try and swerve, slam on the brakes, go left, go right?
Slow down.
Yeah. What's the worst animal that you can hit? And we have a lot of them in Iowa.
Deer.
Nope, hogs.
Oh.
A deer you'll usually knock to the side, and most of the accidents is you'll see a guy says, well, I hit a deer, and his damages will be how much? Pretty close to $2,000. They do a lot of damage. But a hog is so compact that it goes underneath your car, and then it raises it up, and you have absolutely no control. But the worst thing to do is to swerve, because it's a split reaction. If you swerve to the right, there's a good chance you're going over the embankment. You swerve to the left, you don't know what's coming in the opposite lane. Take your chances and run over whatever's out there, really. It's not a right thing to do, but the old thing, better to kill an animal than get yourself hurt or killed. But have any of you hit a deer at night?
I have been really lucky.
Yeah, I don't think that I have. I've been really close a few times.
Right.
I just hate to drive at night. You know, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And then they talk about these deer whistles. Do you have them on your vehicle, deer whistles?
My husband did on one, but then when he sold it, they went with it. So do those help?
The state of Michigan had them when the State Highway Patrol of Iowa put them on there. The type, I'm not trying to sell a product, but we used to have called Save a Life. And they're not going to work if they're full of bugs, and they're not going to work if they're full of snow. So you take in Iowa when we don't have bugs in them or we don't have snow in this, pretty minimal.
But otherwise you think they do?
Yeah. I can remember going down the road a lot of times and seeing the eyes, and they know something's coming. It's kind of like that whistle that only the dog can hear.
It makes sense.
It does.
I mean,
but if you're going down the road 90 mile an hour drinking a can of beer, you're not going to see or hear anything anyway. Maybe the red lights that we were talking about earlier.
Right, right. Oh, well, Roy.
Well, gals, it's been extremely fun.
It's been, I've learned a lot.
I'd like to have you get air conditioning in here next time.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have to quit. We're all about ready to melt.
The hot lights, too.
Oh, it was fun, but
bad, but thank you.
Well, again, we appreciate all the services you've done over the years as a patrolman and everything that you're doing now as far as trapping, and I know you help the Lord's Cupboard out.
Yeah, we go up there every day.
I'm sure there's some other community things that you're doing that we haven't touched on. And so the community thanks you for all those nice things that you're doing.
I thank you for being part of the community. It's enjoyable, and this was enjoyable, and I thank everybody.
So we've opened another door, and
another day.
Thanks a lot.
But you never told me, would you go back to a younger age?
Maybe.
Maybe. Well. That's a definite.
Well, if we believe in reincarnation, we'll just do it next time around. How about that?
That's it. Do you believe?
I'll think about this a lot tonight.
A lot of topics.
Another
Thank you.
$64,000 question. Right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.